Thank you. Thank you so much for that partnership. Our presentation this morning continues an international theme. Those of you who were here at our last session, Lane Kopic made an outstanding presentation on empowering women in rural Africa. Vonda Jump's work is also very international in its focus, though she also does research that is more local. She is a senior research scientist in the Research and Evaluation Division of our Center for Persons with Disabilities. She also teaches undergraduate and graduate courses in the Department of Family, Consumer, and Human Development and the Department of Psychology. Her research interests include professional development of caregivers, and I really like this next part. I'll listen closely if she gets into this, the relationship between mental and physical health and the influence of stress on coping mechanisms. So in addition to her topic today, she does some exciting research in these areas. As you'll see with the presentation, Dr. Jump will discuss interests that actually intersect these different areas. Vonda, if you're ready to go.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Albrecht. I have to say I'm really pleased to be here today to talk with you about an area, a subject that's really important to me, near and dear to my heart, and I'm glad to share it with you. So to begin with, I just want to let you know that I've worked with some great students over the years, and just to highlight a few, Jenny Weston, Katie Christiansen, and Laura Michelle Gardner have influenced me quite a bit, and I hope that likewise I've had an influence on them as well. I also have had the incredible opportunity, like Dr. Albrecht said, we have an incredible university and department, college of education at Utah State, and I've had the opportunity to work with colleagues over the past 18 years who have really expanded my thinking, challenged me, and helped me to grow quite a bit, and I appreciate that quite a bit. But I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for my family. First of all, my parents, who taught me to always do my best and to treat other people well. My husband, Nate, who helps to keep me grounded and to remember that life's not actually so serious, to remember to laugh. And then my daughter, Bianca, who has taught me a lot about life and love. She helped me to get my 2 feet firmly planted on the ground, even though some people would say they're not so firmly on the ground. And she continues to try to teach me patience, but I'm sort of a slow learner. So today, what I'm going to do is talk to you about my infant massage research and some of the realities that we see in orphanages around the world, as well as how some of the work in orphanages relates back to us here in the United States and where I hope to go in the future. So why infant massage, you're probably thinking? Well, when Bianca was a baby, I learned infant massage, and what I thought is, as I massaged her, I felt like I was more in tune with her body, and I knew what was happening. She had 13 ear infections over the course of her first year of life, and I knew every time when they were coming. So I wanted to learn more about massage, and what I learned is, first of all, when a baby is being massaged, the 10th cranial nerve in the brain, the vagus nerve, is being stimulated, and the vagus nerve is responsible for everything that's automatic in our body, or everything like respiration, heart rate, digestion even, and massage also helps to improve our circulation, and for parents, it's a great way for them to learn what a baby is saying to them. I also learned about some of the research that had been done at that time on massage, and some of that included research on premature babies, that premature babies get out of the hospital an average of 6 days earlier when they're massaged than babies who are not massaged, and that, for anybody who understands, it translates to a great cost savings, about $10,000 per baby. For kids with asthma, massage has been shown to help improve all the clinical signs of asthma, like the peak airflow rate. And then for teen moms, it has helped to improve their symptoms of depression. So here's just a small clip to give you a little bit of an illustration of massage. And in this clip, it's not exactly typical because what you would normally see is that a caregiver would be very focused on the child and watching the child as they're doing the massage. There are strokes for the legs, the stomach, the chest, the face, the back, and the arms. And when a person is massaging their baby, the baby's in close contact. Hopefully there's some talking that's going on between the parent and the baby or the caregiver and the baby, and the parent is reading the baby's cues and listening, because theoretically the baby will always lead the interaction. So when I came to get my PhD here at Utah State, actually, I wanted to learn more about massage. I ended up getting funded by the Administration on Children and Families to look at the effects of massage on the parent-child relationship. And what I found is that for parents who learned massage and continued it, their babies, when they were 14 months old, were much more likely to be securely attached than babies whose moms did not learn the massage. And just to tell you what attachment security is, that's sort of an index of the parent-child relationship. It's sort of how well that parent and child dance with each other, and how well the parent has learned what the baby is saying to them and responding appropriately to what the baby is saying. So that brings me to orphanages. I don't know, probably around 2000, maybe even a little bit before, Katie Christiansen, who was a student of mine in a child guidance class, was in Ecuador, and she emailed me and said, Vonda, the babies here aren't allowed to be touched or held very much, and I'm thinking that your massage might be able to help them a lot. So I started learning more about orphanages, and I learned that we have around 13 million children who are without both parents. Not all those kids live in orphanages. Many of them live with extended family, or perhaps with a foster parent, other sorts of situations. But for children in orphanages, the conditions vary quite a bit. You know, you have orphanages that have incredible amounts of services, and then I've been in orphanages that have actually made me cry. The reality is, very often, caregivers who are working in orphanages have little education and little training about what to be doing every day with the babies. And of course, orphanages are not money-making machines. They're actually money-sucking machines, because they're caring for kids. And babies in particular, what do? They're eating, they're pooping, and they're getting sick quite often, as you're going to see here in just a few minutes. So if we're going to do any sort of an intervention in orphanages, we need to make sure that it's not going to cost them anything, if possible. So after searching for funding for about 2 years, I received funding from the Massage Therapy Foundation to go to Quito, Ecuador, to implement an intervention. And about the time that the Olympics were wrapping up here in Utah in 2002, Bianca and I left for Ecuador, and we were there for 3 months to do a pilot study. Now what I did is I essentially flipped a coin to see if a baby would be in the control group or the massage group. And what happened is the caregivers in the orphanages, the nuns, and the volunteers who were there massaged the babies every day for about 15 minutes. And then they also looked at whether or not the baby had any symptoms of illness during the course of the day, and they would just check if they did. I had sheets for them for every baby, and you know, the symptoms were like a clear runny nose, yellow runny nose, congestion, coughing, diarrhea, vomiting, those sorts of things. Now, when I first got to Ecuador, I was surprised by how clean the orphanages were. The sheets were washed every day, and the floors were mopped twice a day. The babies, however, did not have very much language, and the volunteers who were there and the staff members didn't talk to the babies very much at all. So just to give you a little picture of what it was like, I'm going to show you a short clip of the playroom area that the babies were in every day. Oh, the other thing I should say is the toys that you're going to see them playing with, they were probably washed about once a month. They're beautiful children, huh? What I found was that over the course of 30 days, like I said, I was there for about 3 months total, and the intervention lasted for around 2 months. So while I was there, I looked at days 15 to 45 to look at the symptoms of illness for one, and what I found is that the babies in the massage group were more likely to be well than the babies in the control group. But if you notice, over this 30-day period, none of the babies were well very often. They were sick the majority of the time. And granted, lots of that was, just runny noses sort of thing, but they didn't have a lot of days where they were completely well. If we look at diarrhea, the babies in the massage group were less likely to have diarrhea. And you should know that diarrhea is the second biggest killer of babies and young children under the age of 5 in the world. And if you look at this, there's a 3-day difference over that 1 month period. So if we were to sort of extend that out over the period of a year, that would be 36 fewer days of diarrhea for the babies in the massage group. And that may end up translating to fewer babies dying. I should let you know that the massage babies were 34% more likely to be well, or in other words, the babies in the control group had a 34% greater chance of being sick than the babies in the massage group. And about a month ago, I received this email, which for me was really pretty striking. My daughter's in Quito with OSO, which is the Orphanage Support Services Organization, and wanted to let you know that they still aren't allowed to hold the babies, but they are required to provide therapy for each baby by doing the infant massage that you taught. There are not many changes that we as professionals help make that have as long-lasting and profound impact as what you did in Ecuador. For me, that was really touching, that what I did 10 years ago now in Ecuador, they still think makes a difference for babies, and they still continue to do it. So about a year later, I had the opportunity to go to Haiti. I had a little bit of money left over from the Massage Therapy Foundation, and USU, the Center for Persons with Disabilities, where I work, graciously gave a little bit more funding so I could do some more pilot work. And in Haiti, we went in June 2003. What I did was a very similar study, but I was only there for 1 month. And in that time, I was really surprised at what I saw in Haiti. First off, Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and in the orphanage, where the director and his wife were doing such noble work, it really touched me quite a bit. There was no running water, though. The babies just laid on the mats every day outside. They had flies landing on them, flying all around all day long. And there were no toys, of course. And just to give you a picture of this orphanage and the stark contrast from what I saw in Ecuador, I have another small video. So that's a really different context for development, isn't it? If that's what you're doing all day, every single day. What I found in Haiti was similar to what I found in Ecuador, in that the babies in the massage group were more likely to be well than the babies in the control group. And again, you know, I was only there a month, and there are not a lot of days of wellness, but the babies in the massage group were more likely to be well. And you know, the other thing that I'd like to talk about is how the babies increased their interaction skills. Now you're going to see a disturbing video in just a second of a little girl in Haiti when I first arrived who, I mean, I have to tell you that I was so shocked when I first got there because I've never seen babies like this who couldn't interact at all. If you tried to have an interaction with them, they'd turn their heads, they'd do whatever they could to get out of it because they were not used to having social interaction at all. So if you want...
Sandra. Hey! Hey! Where's your nose? This is my nose. That's my nose right here. Hey! Look up here. Where's your finger? Where's your finger?
It's pretty amazing to see and pretty disturbing. I also have a video of the same little girl about 3 weeks later who, well, I'll let you just look. The differences in her is striking, right? We saw at the end, though, how she had too much and she had to get away. But the fact that she had changed so much in such a short period of time was incredible to me. I should let you know that something else happened while I was in Haiti, and that was that a group of volunteers from the Foundation for Children in Need came into this orphanage about the same time that I got there and started interacting with the babies every day, and all the babies improved within that short period, less than a month's time, in their ability to interact with adults. And that's the most amazing thing about children, is that they're wired to have relationships. That's what they're born for, is to have this social relationship with their primary caregivers. And when they get that opportunity, they just thrive. So it was amazing to see. One other thing that I looked at, I wanted to learn a little bit more about cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that we all secrete in our brains. You know, it's great it helps us to adapt just to normal, everyday living. And then when we have deadlines, sorts of things that we need to get, we have those higher levels, it can be a very good thing. There's a normal pattern of cortisol that we see, and that is, this is going to be counterintuitive, we see it on this green line here, that it's higher in the morning and then decreases throughout the course of the day. Now, if you look at the pretest, the blue line here, what I saw in the babies in Haiti was a very different pattern, incredibly different, and it actually looked a lot like what Harry Harlow found in the 1950s and 60s in his work with rhesus monkeys who were raised in social isolation and separated from their mothers. And, you know, what we know is that when a person has cortisol levels that are so different like this, there are vastly different things that are happening in their brains. But if you look at what happened in the course of those few weeks at the post-test, the red line, it looks like the baby's cortisol levels might be coming back toward the normal sort of curve. Was that a fluke? I don't know. I don't know at all. We were only looking at 11 of the babies, and we were looking at both babies in the massage group and the control group. So this is those 11 babies together combined. I'd love to be able to look at this more, but the reality is that looking at cortisol research, we need a lot of money for that. So after coming back from Haiti, you know, I was thinking to myself, well, you know, massage seems like it was helpful, and I think it did make a difference in that intersection between physical and mental health. But it's not enough, because we need caregivers who are able to help promote actively the development of young children. So I started thinking about expanding this model so that we could train caregivers in the areas of physical, cognitive, social, and language development of young babies, and let the babies be the teachers, of course. And then think about some more systematic changes in the orphanage. Remember, I said that we can't do anything that costs money, but there could be some very simple changes we could do. Like, for example, for a baby in an orphanage, very often there might be, let's say, 35 babies in the orphanage and 5 caregivers. And typically what happens is those 5 caregivers are sort of caring for all 35 babies. For those babies, they don't know what to expect. They don't know. You saw that baby be picked up like this? That baby's sitting there thinking, what am I being picked up for this time? I don't know. And if we can help babies to develop predictability by maybe having one caregiver who is in charge of 7 babies, and the babies get to learn this caregiver signals, the caregiver gives a signal for, I'm going to change your diaper, I'm going to give you a bath, I'm going to feed you, whatever it is that's going to happen, then for that baby, they can develop a lot more predictability in their world, feel like they have more control in their world, and that in turn helps them to develop their self-regulatory abilities, which are so important. So I got pretty lucky because I was contacted by a woman, Laura Peterson, who is beginning a new nonprofit organization called Hands to Hearts International. And Laura and I started talking. She wanted to do massage training in orphanages. I said, whoa, we really have to do more than that. Let's think about this. We talked together, and I created a training that I had the opportunity in February of 2006 to go to India to try out. And what I did is I did 2 different 4-day trainings where the caregivers were very involved in discussions every day and got to think out loud with each other about what all this means for babies. And I just have to tell you, I'm going to read just a little blurb from a report that I did right after I came home. But they did a lot more than believe. I was amazed on our 3rd day of training when I saw 2 or 3 women at different times get up to go into the next room where the babies were and bring a baby into our training room. I was amazed when I watched a woman who had a baby in her lap stick out her tongue, and the baby stuck out her tongue in return. We always used the babies as the teachers, and we were talking about social development. I was amazed when I went into the orphanage during a break from another training the week after I'd trained the first women at the orphanage. I couldn't believe what I saw. One woman was carrying a 2-month-old high-need baby who had essentially been entirely avoided before, and he was content as could be as he observed her face and interacted with her. Another woman was practicing walking with a 15-and-a-half-month-old baby who had never been encouraged to walk before. Another woman had a small baby in her lap while she rocked another baby in a pumpkin seat and played with another baby with a toy. Yes, indeed. These women did far more than nod, agree with me, and then go on their same path. They took the little bit of knowledge that we had constructed together and they ran with it. It was as if they'd been doing these things their entire lives. I was really shocked at how much change there was in the orphanages. And since that time, Hands to Hearts has expanded their program so that they're actually doing a lot more work with parents and daycare providers. But I think it's really impressive to know that they've affected over 100,000 caregivers and children. And what we've heard is that caregivers, directors are happier, babies are happier and healthier, and they like it. So how's all this apply to the United States and right here in Salt Lake? I have a video that can help us think about it.
In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions, and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to.
So, what did you see happening here? The baby and the mom are interacting, right? And when we think about the brain development for that young baby, there's a lot happening, right? Because her mom's talking to her, she's touching her, she hears her mom, she feels her mom, she sees her mom, and then she also smells her mom, because babies have a very strong sense of smell. And there's a principle called Hebb's axiom, which is the neurons that fire together, wire together. So if we think about this little girl, what's happening is she's got all these associated feelings of goodness, and her cognitive abilities are being stimulated as well, right? And all those neurons that are responsible are beginning to fire together, and the more often that happens, the faster those, just like a hiking path, the faster that path's going to get. Now, let's look at the same baby again.
And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. And then we ask the mother. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what do you do? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
I wanted you to see the resolution of that so that you're not sort of traumatized by this. So if we think about those same principles of brain development and what's happening for the baby there was a lot of stress, right? And for a child who experiences that every day, continuously, over a long period of time, think about what's happening for their brains. There's nobody talking to them, right? We saw how she's really stressed. Again, that same principle applies, the Hebb's axiom. The neurons that fire together, wire together. And so for a child who is experiencing high levels of stress, first of all, the learning centers in the brain can be affected, memory can be affected, the ability to attend to what's happening and to control behavior can be affected. And what can happen is the amygdala, which is the fear and anxiety center in the brain, becomes the go-to center in the brain. But for those kids who are securely attached, like I talked about at the very beginning, who have that nice dance, they've had parents who have responded, the parents have learned what their cues mean, and they've responded appropriately. What we know is that those kids, when they get into stressful situations, they secrete less cortisol, that stress hormone, and they get over it a lot faster than babies who are insecurely attached. And, we don't really think of parents as engineers, but the reality is that parents are brain engineers. It doesn't take rocket science to do it, but we do know that the biology of the brain is directly impacted by interactions between primary caregivers and their young children. 60 years ago, John Bowlby hypothesized this, and now today we have the neurobiological evidence, the brain scans, to prove that it actually is happening. So what do we need to do as brain engineers? Like I said, it's not rocket scientists, or it's not rocket science. We need to learn what babies are saying to us and then respond to them. We need to pick babies up when they cry. I teach human development undergraduate classes, and when I've asked my students in the past, should you pick up a crying baby if they're 6 months old or younger? And invariably, at least 1/3 of the class says no. What we know is that for kids, for babies who are picked up in those first 6 months of life, they're less likely to cry in the second 6 months of life. And why is that? Because they've learned their parent's going to be there. They can trust. They know that if they need something, they're going to be responded to. For babies who are not picked up, they've got to up the ante. They've got to increase their likelihood of being picked up. So they're going to have to cry more to get that same response from their parents. Other things we can do, talk to our babies. You know, talking and language, that's one of the #1 predictors of how kids are going to do in the early years in school. And then I think massaging your baby is not only good for the relationship, but for helping us learn what they're trying to say. Provide fun opportunities. You know, we want to stimulate their muscles. We want to take them out and let them talk about the trees, to give them sensory experiences, challenge them, and always talk to them, sing to them. All those things that we can do to help increase their language development. And we want to do it in a positive way so that Hebs axiom, the neurons that fire together, are wiring together. And, you know, just so you know, an incredible resource is 0 to 3. They have developmental milestones listed. You can actually email them, tell them how old or when you're due to have a baby, and they will send you email updates to let you know what your baby might be doing in the next little while and how to facilitate their development. Now, I'd like to talk just briefly about future work that I'd like to do. I'd really like to do a comprehensive orphanage study to look at what's happening. You know, my work has only been pilot work, and there are so many limitations, I can't even list them. But if we could do a comprehensive study where we look at the impact of intervention for babies and for caregivers in the orphanages, I really believe that we can impact babies' entire lifelong trajectories. The reality is when a baby is born, they have so much potential. And you know, every baby has a different potential according to their genetic material, but then the environment continues to play a role. And for babies who are in an enriching environment, they can just keep going, keep going. The longer babies are in orphanage care, where the standard of care, you know, not because caregivers want to do anything negative, but because of a lack of knowledge of what to do, I believe that no baby should ever come out of an orphanage developmentally delayed. But what we know is they typically come out quite developmentally delayed. I have a project with the Department of Defense that will soon be beginning, where we'll be looking at the impact of massage on dads who have been deployed to the war zones. And very often what's happening is some of those dads are coming back and they feel like they're contaminated. They've seen so much negative stuff that they shouldn't be seeing, and they don't want to pass that on to their babies. And as a result, they're sort of keeping them at an arm's length. What we want to do is look at whether or not we can help increase that interaction through something that's very non-threatening and concrete for dads to learn. And then I also hope to look at the effects of intervention with moms who are depressed. You know, what we've seen in some of our studies is that anywhere between 10 to 30% of moms are depressed. And when you look at a high-risk sample, that number goes up to 40 to 60% of moms. And for a baby, to have somebody who's not interacting with them over a long period of time without having a buffer there, like a dad or an older sibling, to help them, you know, to essentially continue to stimulate those babies and increase their brain development, the outcomes for those children can be compromised. They're 2 to 3 times more likely to have mental health problems when they're teenagers than children whose mothers have never experienced depression. So it's a pretty important subject. So I want to thank you for having me here today. And I'm wondering if anybody has any questions or comments. Yes?
You showed us the large amount of very small babies in that orphanage in Haiti and so on. Where are their parents?
Where are their parents? Well, do you know, in orphanages, very often what happens, like if we look in Haiti, when a parent has a baby, they either have to put the baby in an orphanage or put an older child out into the street. In a country like Haiti, which is very poor. And it's true that in orphanages there are many parents who are still living, but they can't afford to have their children. But then there's also the case, you know, the majority of children in orphanages are true orphans because both parents have died. So that's a big loss. Yes?
Dr. Jump, one of the realities of the third world is that no matter how poor a country is, there are always, some fairly wealthy people in it. In a situation where you're training people to be these very, very good caregivers in a charity situation, how do you prevent them from, by the time they get really good, from being harvested by the people who can afford them for kind of these private daycare providers for the wealthier? How do you keep them?
That's a great question. Do you know what happened in India is we were doing a train-the-trainer sort of model where I trained a master trainer who then went on to train anybody who wanted training. She did trainings in orphanages. She did trainings in child care centers with parents. And so hopefully that would be the way. We make the training available to whoever needs it. And for somebody who's doing it in country, it's much less expensive than somebody from the United States going over to do it. So I think that what can happen is we can go from the U.S. to do the train-the-trainer sort of model and train somebody there who can then go on and continue training other people. And I think that's the way we sustain it. Thanks. I'm sorry?
I just wanted to mention the Utah Association of Mental Health. If anyone would be interested in joining that organization, that's what our focus is from infancy to 5. And Vonda is a very active member in the association and has been back in Africa. And so if you have continued interest in this, we'd like you to join us.
And I should put a plug in for the Utah Association for Infant Mental Health because it's an organization that's completely dedicated to ensuring that all children grow up ready socially and emotionally to meet whatever obstacle they come upon. And there are different trainings that occur, different meetings, and then newsletters that come out. Our recent newsletter is just about going out, I think. Yes?
Vonda, you mentioned in your own experience that when you were giving massage therapy, you were actually able to anticipate ear infections in your dog. And so I'm going back to that very interesting data on days where children that were receiving the therapy were healthier, but had more days of good health. And I'm curious, are you attributing that to the massage, or was that because of the intimacy of the contact between the caregivers and the infants allowed them to recognize the onset of illness and react to it and treat it more effectively?
You know, that's a really good question. And I think it's hard to disentangle those effects because massage is such a one-on-one and very interactive thing. And like I said, babies are born wired to form relationships. And so that's where we get to that intersection between physical and mental health that when we're feeling better, think about it, when we're really stressed, we're more susceptible to illness, right? And so just by decreasing stress. So I don't know where it comes in, but the great thing is that it seems like babies can be affected socially, and then if their health can be impacted as well, how wonderful is that? I think it'd be hard to, like we might have to have somebody here blindfolded or something who's massaging, and I just think that would be unethical.
Well, the question would be whether the kind of medical intervention would result.
Right. Yes.
Talk about the statistics of massage on high-risk babies like orphanage or preemies. Is there that dramatic of an increase in wellness, whatever, for
Do you know, I actually wanted to look at that. And I was funded through Utah State University with one of the community university research partnerships to look at exactly that. And what I found was that there was not a difference between the massage group and the control group. It was a very small sample. And the reality is, yeah, our babies are more likely to be well here than in other situations. But I think that, you know, my dissertation work still implies that it's something that's very beneficial to do between parents and children because it looked like it improved attachment and helped parents understand what their babies were saying to them, which is incredibly important. Luckily, we are in a situation in the United States where our babies are not sick all the time. Yes.
Vonda, this obviously focused, as you said, on high-risk babies, if you will. But I think the implications of what you presented for any parent embarking on child rearing is incredible. Because the reality is we all have models of what we do and how we interact with babies, probably largely based on how we were interacting. I think there's
Right.
a huge implication for, and I believe that's part of what you do in your work at the university.
That's correct. Looking at how we can work with parents to promote optimal development of young children. Yes. Yes.
How do you train people, parents, others, to do the massage?
Do you know, I'm a certified infant massage instructor, and I'm in the final stages of being a trainer. So as an instructor, what I can do is I can train groups of parents, I can train staff members, those sorts of things in orphanages. As a trainer, what I'll be doing is training all sorts of staff members here in the United States as well or you know, just somebody who's interested in going out to then teach parents. And we always want parents to be the ones massaging their babies, dads or moms, or you know, maybe an older sibling. There are some people who might advocate for a physical therapist to do it. I would never advocate for that because what we want to do is promote that relationship between the parent and child. I think there was somebody back here who had a question.
Those are orphanages that have a rule of not touching the baby.
Well, it's that they weren't really allowed to hold them. It's to protect the babies. They don't want the babies to be heartbroken when they leave the orphanage and they leave their caregiver. They don't really understand that the reality is when they've gotten that wonderful start with a strong relationship with somebody else, it's a lot easier to form a strong relationship with a new person. And so that's why.
I'm sure that the larger population of these orphanages are girls. Because a lot of the girls are
When you look in India, China particularly.
But I'm sure you're aware of both, and I wondered if you saw any difference between the sexes of the babies.
In terms of their...
How they reacted or how soon or if they didn't.
Do you know what? I don't really remember, and statistically I couldn't look at it because my numbers were so small. That's why we need a much more comprehensive study to be able to look at whether or not there are gender differences, because theoretically there could be. Yeah. And somebody over here has been waiting, sorry.
All of the pictures that you've shown and the clips were infants and babies. I'm wondering this age that you have up on the screen here, do you do any work with children, toddlers, that age in orphanages, as far as massage or touch or interaction?
Do you know, as far as actual massage with this older group of population, we didn't, just because I was there for such a limited period of time and really had to focus on doing my research. But what I did do was I went to the DI and I collect puppets that I find there. I took puppets in, and they'd never seen puppets. And the caregivers of them, they were amazing. They'd never seen a puppet either, but they did these amazing puppet shows with the young preschoolers, and the kids, like they just stood and they were just watching these puppets interact with each other. It was amazing. to see. And so, I mean, I think that there's a lot of work that can be done. Very simple things that we could do with caregivers of older children. But, you know, again, I was focusing on the babies because that's what my research was. I wish I would have had like an entire year to be there because there were so many things I wanted to be doing. Uh-huh. I'm going to embarrass my daughter here because, so I began massaging Bianca when she was a baby, and then she started walking when she was about 7.5 months old, and she didn't want to be massaged any longer. And then when she was about 2, she was okay with being massaged again. And from then all the way through, I mean, even as a teenager, I'd ask her when she was stressed, so can I give you a massage or can I rub your back? And, you know, sometimes she would just shrug, like sort of thing, as only teenagers can do. And I figured that since she didn't absolutely say no, that was my opening. I could do it. So I would just start to rub her back a little bit, and I could just feel her begin to melt. And even, you know, Bianca's about to turn 21 next month, I can't believe. And even last summer, Bianca and I took all the shingles off our roof, and when we could barely walk at the end of the day, Bianca said, "Mom, please massage my back." I said, "I can't move. I can't massage your back." Yeah.
One final question for Vonda?
Yes, Susan. Shoot, I wish I would have brought information with me. You can get on the Infant Massage USA website, and they tell about trainings that are coming up. I think that there's going to be a training in Salt Lake in September, maybe. I can't remember exactly when, but that will have the list of trainings that are happening. Thank you so much for your interest.